According to General Colin Powell, Harvard professor Henry Louis Skip Gates could have avoided arrest and the ensuing controversy by just calmly talking to Cambridge, Massachusetts Police Sergeant James Crowley and coming outside of his house. General Powell, in your interview with Larry King, quote, "I'm saying, Skip, perhaps in this instance, might you have waited a while, come outside, talk to the officer, and that might have been the end of it?" With all due respect, General, I find it incredibly preposterous of you to pass judgment and presume to know what Professor Gates may or may not have said at the beginning of his ordeal, when Dr. Gates said that he asked Crowley for his name and badge number. Personally, I am convinced that when the story first broke that Crowley was lying simply by observing his body language and speech pattern. America is aware since Monday that Crowley fabricated his police report, yet the media is obviously well controlled. I'm also appalled by the jealousy towards Professor Gates, largely because the media is afraid of a backlash from police associations. I see a lot of white people with brown noses. You said that the whole incident regarding Professor Gates might have been resolved in a different manner if we didn't have this verbal altercation between the two of them. That implies that you believed a lying thug instead of a scholar of Professor Gates' stature. Not only do you owe Dr. Gates an apology, but your comments reveal that you are not even a good judge of character. Unfortunately, there are still a number of people who maintain illusions and believe that you are a good guy who tried his best to moderate the evil nature of the Bush administration but failed. We don't know exactly what time period we're dealing with. Depleted uranium has a half-life of 4.2 billion years and been used to pollute Iraq for generations to come. Continue reversing yourself in order to rescue your reputation, sir. General Powell, police brutality is at an all-time high. You were a victim of profiling yourself. To your credit, at the time of your comment, you possibly had no idea Sgt Crowley fabricated his police report. Crowley was undoubtedly vituperated by Professor Gates, and that may be a blot for Professor Gates, but not a green light to pompously state that anger is best controlled. Dr. Gates does not deserve to be publicly berated by any high-profile persona, especially since it has been clearly established that Crowley lied. I am indeed curious as to what it was that motivated you to speak out against Dr. Gates. I am white, born in Europe, and don't have a racist bone in my body. But I am the victim of a white police officer who gives out my address and other personal information over the internet. The officer threatened to destroy and humiliate me thousands of times, asks people to visit me, that they have his full support in addition to saves the taxpayers' money. In essence, he is inviting people to kill me. All because I filed a 20-page complaint against him for which he was given documented counseling. This Dallas police officer forced a mentally unstable man, who, by the way, is a self-described lesbian, with a history of arrests and stays in mental institutions. Strange as it sounds, but the Dallas officer convinced this man to file a fraudulent $10,000 lawsuit against me, vowing he will humiliate and destroy me, adding, "Please thank me for destroying your life." This megalomaniac hacked not only into my YouTube account, but my ISP as well. 2 days after I sent Rachel Maddow an email, he joked on his site that Miss Maddow is not interested in what I have to say. It is highly improbable Miss Maddow informed this thug of my email. Please keep in mind, he repeats over and again that I am the one with mental problems and in dire need of medication, which he will make sure I get when I'm sentenced to at least 50 years in prison. As you can see, General Powell, police officers are not merely involved in racial profiling. They have some real psychopaths in the force who refuse to allow individuals to be with their mother minutes before she died, in case you are not aware of the case. But Dallas can boast of one advertising for killers. Although assuring me that they got a subpoena to ascertain the identity of the individual posting the obscene messages, The Dallas Police Department has been unable to contain this nut, although since I filed complaint number 2, his malevolence is pretty much curtailed to Sundays instead of the previous 24/7 posts, another indicator as to his identity. Initially, I was only interested in the police department stopping this man's harassment, but I am now seriously considering legal action. Family and friends in Europe had enough and managed to raise substantial funds to hire an international attorney to obtain a subpoena to ascertain just how many accounts this thug has and finally nail him for his violent, horrific attacks and lies. I am well aware of the blue wall of silence, i.e., an unwritten, unspoken code by which cops protect their own. Thankfully, one of their own had a conscience and contacted me as to this officer's illegal conduct, how he tries, openly I might add, to find individuals willing to plant drugs on me, but also stipulates that he, quote, wants them to be sure there is no physical evidence, unquote. His preferred method is someone injecting me with drugs. With all due respect, General Powell, sir, you were just as qualified when you commented on Dr. Gates' situation as you were when you gave your speech to the United Nations. Professor Gates is only the tip of the iceberg regarding police misconduct and brutality. Why is the media suffering from inertia when Crowley said, quote, I've never been accused of being a racist before, to this degree? I'd say Crowley admitted that indeed he has been accused, just not to this degree. Why, General Powell, do you think this comment gets no airtime, yet the beer summit had a countdown? I found that quite a teachable moment, General.